So in TPC, I have a project here. We've processed 2 tracks, so we've got 4 rails. So if we're looking to do some basics checks here, just on the gauge and the cant, one of the functions we can use is the chainage offset elevation report. In order to do that first, we need to create an alignment. So if we pick one of our rails here on the left, and under the corridors tab, we select create an alignment. We just give it a name. You can add it to a specific layer or create a new layer. And then to define the segments, we're going to use an existing line. It's basically just the line we've selected here, spiral type. We can keep that as qualified. Just hit OK. I'll pop up with the alignment editor here, and if you want, you can set the chainage, so you can change the chainage. But we'll just leave it as is. So now if I go into under the corridors again, the chainage offset elevation report, we're going to select our alignment of the left rail, start chainage and end chainage. You can set that. For this, we're just using the full length for this survey. In the points and lines, what we're going to do is select the opposite rail here. So in the settings, you need to select 2 options for compute points and also include the line points. So the line points you can set at intervals if you don't want it to create these intervals. If you only want it to do it at the individual points, if you just set that, you need to have it selected, otherwise it won't work. But if you just set the station interval to something beyond the length of your job, so I just set to 1,000 here, everything else we can leave unticked. Report options. If you want the positions of the points, just to make it easier to see rather than just a node in the chainage, you can include the northerns and easterns. And also we want the elevation change. And we're going to load data into Excel and then just hit OK. Once that's done, you'll have an Excel spreadsheet will pop up. You'll see you've got point IDs, you've got chainage, offsets, the elevation, the change in elevation, depth, east and northern. So in order just to sort this here, what you'll have is you'll have a rail left, so you won't have an offset in there, then you'll have it from the actual rail. So if you want to change that, if you go to the offset, create a filter on there, just basically turn everything off that's got a 0 on it. And basically we're just left with the measurements at the actual points themselves. We can just change that report in order how we want to see it. So if you're looking to get to these points, you could just type in easterns, northerns basically to get to that position, or go along the chainage. One of the other checks we can do is basically for our overlapping rail shots. So we've got some overlapping points here. Just a quick way to check this kind of thing is in the reports, you have a point comparison report. So if you're in the point comparison report, basically it will search for points that fall within a range, basically a tolerance range that you can set horizontal and vertical. So in this we'll see 128 to 155 fell within 50 mil horizontal and vertical. So predominantly that will be your overlapping points. So it gives you the horizontal distance between the two, but also gives you east and north and vertical. So obviously the vertical's handy. And if your job's running east-west or north-south, then you can kind of work out the difference basically. So in this one, it's not running north-south, so we know the lateral offset will basically be from the eastern. So it gives us basically a quick way of checking in between the two of these. If you want to change these values that you see here, if you go into the reports again, you go to report options, and it will give you basically options for any of the reports. And if you go down to the point comparison report, you can change these search filters and tolerances and apply them in there and then rerun your report. To manually check the overlapping points, one of the tools you can use is Explore Object. So in this occasion we're going to use a reference line. So if we pick the line, and then if we pick the point, it will give us the distance offset to that line and elevation, and you can just pan along and pick these in order to compare it. Likewise, you can also use the Explore Object tool to compare between points. So if we use this as the reference line and then the object line, basically you can move along the line there and it will tell you it gives you the height difference and slope, but it does tell you the offset at any point along the line as you pan up and down through it. So you can do that between points, and you can do that similarly between lines. If you're just checking between point to line or line to point, you can also use the inverse tool. So in the inverse we can go from point to point, or we can do from a point, and if you right click we can do perpendicular to the line and then pick that line. Likewise, it will give us the distance and elevation difference. It will also report on these as well in here. So you've got options then you can actually show the reports, any of these things here that you've measured.